I'm Keanu Reeves.
I'm Matt Kindt.
We're here today to talk a little bit about Berserker. All right, Matt, maybe we go off of issue 1. Like, how did we get here, and what did we do, and what are we trying to do, and what don't we know? I don't know. What are we doing?
Yeah. No, let's start here. For me, like, I kind of want to know, like when you first asked me to work with you, I was like, what's the idea? And when I came into the room, you had something already. Like, you had this idea of this character and that. And so I kind of want to know, like, where that came from.
Oh, right.
I don't know if we talked about this.
Yeah. Yeah, he was, it was just something that I was kind of daydreaming. And it was this character that started with a little bit of the ultra violence, like kind of just, I wanted to punch through chests and rip off arms. And, it kind of went to the past. I had this kind of first battle Viking kind of idea. Well, then it just started to be, well, like, who is he? And I think it's kind of, the journey that you and I have been taking is like this premise of this guy who was, his mother's human, but his father is, a lightning strike, a kind of god, or, so the premise of it was, for me, already kind of fantastical and would allow this investigation of, and this mystery of who is this guy, and this idea of, working with you, we kind of came up with his reason for being, which we introduce in issue 1, the backstory, right? And you and I kind of went back and forth on, like, is it 25,000 years ago? And I was like, 80,000 years ago.
Yeah.
Just to make it even more fantastical, right? To kind of like prompt us to go to places where, you could let your imagination kind of go. We weren't confined to quote unquote reality in a way.
Yeah. No, I felt like pushing it back that far. Let us just, like, we were free to do whatever, and like we could do whatever, and then and just sort of invent, like, the world that was 80,000 years ago.
Yeah, and then I think was cool with, because we started with just conversation, and when you say, like, I had a lot of them in me, I feel like once I go into Berserkers, when I start to play the role, I feel like I just play the guy. Yeah. It just starts to happen. And so this idea of, which we laid out, I mean, you've really been so, I don't know, you're, writing the kind of architecture and putting it in place, and like having this guy who's, for him, he's cursed. But what you introduced was this idea of him, being in this tribe, and being a kind of, having them attack. I remember I was kind of doing the attack, but then the idea of him as a tool, like the mother and father go and they pray to the gods, and their wishes granted, and this kid kind of grows up super quickly. We just started to have fun with, well, what would that guy look like? What would he do? But in issue 1, to kind of like do, because we want to reveal the backstory of this guy, right? But in issue 1, with, with how we were speaking was, we have him, present day. I remember I had that image of, like, the guy leaning over in the rain, and, you came up with Seattle and, like, that kind of forest, that place. And, so that in issue 1, we really kind of, like, we knew we wanted to do the backstory. We knew we wanted to see that he was in, where is he doing now? What is he doing now? The missions, and then set up really Diana, who's the lead scientist, who's investigating and trying to understand I don't know. Yeah. How did that happen? Where did that happen?
Here's what I was thinking about this. Maybe I was thinking about it too much, and I almost hesitate to tell you because I don't want to ruin our process. But it won't ruin it. But like, when you were first talking about the character and everything, it really did feel like you'd been thinking about that character in almost as like a role, and like you'd had a lot of it fleshed out, and I was like, oh, this is great. And to me, part of the fun is like hearing you riff on him, and when you're talking about him, and then some of the lines when you're coming up with it, it's like sometimes you'll slip into like, instead of talking about him as a character, you're like, I do this, and then I would do, and I freaking love it because it's like, because you're like, that's what writing is, you know what I mean? Is like anytime I'm doing it, I'm just like, oh, what would I do if I was this person doing this thing? So
Yeah.
it's fun seeing that happen, but then also coming up with the other characters like Diana and Caldwell, who's like the whatever, he's like this obsessed like the history of this guy and like where was he and where has he been, like introducing those characters. I almost felt like that's my way in. So like
Mm,
I'm almost like I can examine you and your character through these characters, and I felt like that conversation, then we were almost a little bit of role playing, but it's just like, oh, but she would she do this, and then I have questions, then I can just question you like Diana would question B. I'm just
yeah.
like, yeah, but what is he, but what about that? And then how does he feel? And what is this? And then in a way, like I feel like I'm playing that other role, the science role, and trying to build this architecture. And you're in B, sort
Kind
of
of in it.
right, beating the crap out of everything. And
I mean, the way that you tell story is so clever, sophisticated, lean, poignant, emotional, fun. Working with the character Jim and with Diana, and so for me to do these riffs, and then because then we kind of you go to outline, right, and then we kind of pass these outlines back and forth. We have conversations, and then you go and you mold it, you create it.
I try to prop it all up, and then I bring it back to you, and you're like, "What about
Mm,
this?"
yeah. But it's
No,
fun how we kind of
yeah,
like, because we know like the bigger picture, like we have the bigger picture, but
yeah,
it's been fun making up. We kind of, you kind of put us in these places, like I don't want to give it away too much, but like, we're thinking, just as a sidebar, we're thinking of the series as having, 4-issue arcs, 12 issues, and, having kind of 4-issue arcs in them. And the place that you put us starting off arc 2, um, it's been cool to like be put into these. It's kind of like the same thing with characters. It's like we're examining the story in a way, and then seeing what can be possible. And we know that we have this, for me, a sympathetic character that does have a dialogue about violence in ourselves. I mean, we have a character who's compelled to violence, who doesn't want to kill, who holds life precious and dear, and yet has this thing come upon him. And he's, in a way, I think, with what we've been doing, is like, I thought it was fun the way that, you kind of had him kind of hide within wars. Because that was one of the earlier images too, right? Like Napoleon Fields, like what does this guy do to survive through all of these ages, and this idea of having to hide within conflict. But then he's not dying, he's aging, but
yeah.
like, what does he do? How does he hide? And then the idea of like, well, okay, well, when he gets, because then we had to come up with all the rules, right? If he does get injured, if he does get killed, how does he come back? And it's been fun to kind of just bounce, be creative and figure that out.
I think like one of the things I'm attracted to just in general about the whole idea is like I love the idea of like an immortal warrior, and like, oh, then he could have seen all of history. Like the nerd in me is like, oh, he could be there and he could do that, and he's seen all these wars. And then I loved, I don't know when you said it, but you're like, it's even a line in the book, I think, when he's talking to Caldwell later, who's the guy who's like trying to figure out all the pieces and where was he, and trying to figure out where he was in the past. And he's like asking all these questions. He's like, yeah, can you read this? What does this mean? And then I can't remember exactly what your line was. You're like, he's like, I wasn't there. I'm not
Yeah,
everywhere.
it wasn't everywhere. Just
Yeah,
one guy.
yeah. That's what I like, the idea that I'm thinking like that character is like, oh, he's seen all this stuff, but then he's probably taken like 10 years, 20 years off to go on a farm somewhere, and I just love that idea.
Yeah, and I think what Matt K does, everyone, is that we'll do the outlines, and then he'll literally kind of do the dialogue with the panels and do layouts. We're getting to work with Ron Garney as the illustrator, and it's it's cool just kind of starting that, even for you who knows everything about making a comic, saying to him, listen, I'm going to do this outline, but if you feel something, go do that.
Yeah, no, it's fun because I've never collaborated in a way like this. Like I've co-written things before where it's like you just kind of split it up. I'll write this, you write that, and then I've never collaborated in a way where we're really just like back and forth everything, building the whole thing as we go. And then yeah, and then the script and then sending the script off. And it is like, to me, that's what's great about comics is like the organic nature of everything, even till the last, till Ron gets it and then he's adding a panel or doing something to help the story. It's cool. That's what makes comics great. And like, and no one's telling us what to do. you know,
No, thank you, Boom.
yeah, right. They're
Boom
just
Studio or publisher. Yeah.
that's it. I remember the one of those early meetings that we came in. It was like we think it needs to be 12 issues. and everybody's like, okay. and
No, and
that's
then you were
great.
like, what about a double issue for the first one?
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, so I'm just kind of looking at a little bit of issue one, and yeah, so we have these kind of this prong. We wanted to start the mystery or start this backstory, then we wanted to be in present day, and then we wanted to show. So it was really like we want to show the berserker side of him, the human side of him, his pathos and what he's thinking. I remember he has perfect memory just kind of came out of nowhere when we were riffing. I'm like, but he has perfect memory.
yeah.
And then you were like, yeah, but his memories are repressed. And then it was like, yeah, Diana, right? And then you've been kind of connecting this idea of emotion and backstory, kind of getting him to reveal who he is in a way that he's probably never done before, and having that catharsis and what it's bringing up for him as they're trying to understand him for reasons that we don't quite know.
Yeah. no, yeah, I think that's what's cool is the way we structured it is present day and then beginning of time. And so you get to see him, you get to see both versions of him. And there's been 80,000 years difference between that guy and this guy. And so like the series then is going to be neat. And the first issue just shows you the absolute contrast of him at that beginning, where he's like trying to figure out what he is. And then present day where he's like, trying to figure out who he is, but also kind of having an understanding of his place in the world and not, yeah, it's just, I think it's cool from a storytelling point of view. Like it gives us so much to work with. I remember like your first pitch of the thing was that's the question for that character in issue one and through the whole series is he's like, what am I? It's like, am I, this dog of war, and him trying to reconcile that nature where his violent nature with like what he really wants out of life. Yeah, it's fun.
and you can do like I know because I would get some of this when we would talk about the ultra violence. I did like punches through chests and ripping off arms.
yeah.
And you came up with but wouldn't it be neat if he grabbed like the rib and then stabbed someone?
that was after you. I think my first outline or the first draft, you're like it's not enough. I think you pushed me. You pushed me. Like we need more. It needs to be more. And I was like, okay. And so I literally was like, what could be the most? Here's what's cool though. Like that, as cool and crazy as that is, there's like something kind of biblical about that idea of using a bone as a weapon. You know what I mean? It's like the most ancient. There's a rock and then there's a bone. Like I can't remember who it was in the Bible. Somebody had a jawbone they used and just were whacking people. And that's always stuck with me since I was a kid. That kind of that ancient weapon of a bone, such a brutal thing. And then I was thinking about that this morning too. I was like, yeah, of course if he doesn't have a weapon, he would see like how brutal is it for him to just look at a person and see a weapon inside that person. I was like, oh, there's a weapon. I'll just take it. Which
it's pretty
anyway.
fun. And it's I'm looking forward to like all of the kind of because we have a lot of it.
Yeah.
We haven't done the one yet, which I want to do, which is the cleaving someone completely in half.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's good. See, that's coming from you. You're pushing me to do this.
Like a Viking sword, just voila. But I mean, we're also taking some turns, in the sense of, well, actually, as we're playing with the hyper violence as well, that has hopefully emotional content. I mean, while we're doing these, we're going to get into kind of philosophical, moral, ethical kind of examinations. In a weird way, Berserker's this examination of human nature in a way, isn't it? And
Yeah.
it's going from like violence to love to intimacy to family to mothers, fathers, tribes, countries, self, identity.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that's what's kind of fun about it is like I feel like we both enjoy the violence, and it's something like since I was a kid, like I've always loved action and
Yeah.
since you know what I mean? And there's something about it but it's always been like to me it's always been hard to reconcile that as like a person that would never hurt another person. I was like, I would never hurt anybody, but why do I like this so much? And I think
Yeah.
that's an interesting part of his character too, is this idea of like there's something in him that doesn't like it. There's also something in him that kind of likes it. And I think that's fun, like from a personal point of view, to sort of explore that.
Mm.
But
And then also we've gotten into like, let's make up science.
yeah.
let's I mean, because right, I mean, like when we've been talking about it, I'm like, well, wait, what if he has another amino acid? What if his DNA is not the same? What if what if there's a quantum aspect to something, which we're gonna reveal later?
Yeah. That's a spoiler. But yeah, you sent me on so many rabbit holes just by like I'm like amino acids. I gotta look that up. But
yeah, like base pairs, right?
yeah. No, you there's so many notes where you're just talking and I'm like, I'm gonna write that down, look it up later. I don't know anything about
It
that.
was super volcanoes,
Yeah,
right? Like maybe he took a little hibernation kind of during a super volcano.
That's new. You just sent that too, and I was like, oh, super volcano. Why didn't I think of that? That's like what a great visual.
Yeah. What else do we got in issue 1? So let me see. We have that. We have Jim the handler, the guy who's been with him for like 25, 30 years. He's kind of his Black Ops kind of manager, I guess, caretaker. Oh my God. Oh yeah, the part where he eats the heart, but then he sees the kid.
Yeah. That's the dichotomy that's like he's this savage thing that loves violence in a way. There's something in him, but then there's also that compassion, which is kind of dark.
No, but then the Black Ops guys who come after are just like
yeah.
No witnesses.
Yeah, that's dark. Who's writing this? That's dark.
But it's real, right?
Yeah, no, it's good. It's good.
So what else we got? I mean, that's kind of, from conversations to big whiteboards and super meetings to phone calls to Skypes to emails. We try to meet and and just play. And
yeah, no, that's like this process is I've never done this process before, like for writing anything, and it's I feel like we kind of like just organically came around to a way of like doing it, where it's like, well, how do we talk like this? Basically, this is how we do it. Like what we're doing now is how we write it. We just spit it back and forth. I'll type it up. We look at it again, and then we spit it back and forth again, and just slowly hone in on it. It's just like a drawing. Like I feel like we sketch it out. The whole thing is sketched out, and then we just slowly tighten it up as we go. And then there's a script, and then pages.
Yeah. By the way, I've got some notes, but I think anyway. The other
islands. We can do it. Let's just work right now. I know we. Issue 8. Let's go.
I know. Well, it's exciting because I've been. Yeah, well, we have a little bit of a nexus right now because we have to make some decisions about the rules for B
Yeah.
in terms of anyway.
No, it's cool, but I think that's what's cool about especially issue 5 through 8. We really are like testing the character and the limits. Like we literally kind of put him in a box and then see what happens. You know,
Yeah.
and I think that's exciting.
Well, I have some ideas because once you've put us in that Kindtian kind of pressure cooker of like, it's gone. So what else can we do after this? I have some ideas.
Oh, good. Because we went so big and
I know. But
Good.
Some ideas.
Yeah, so. Good. Don't spoil it, but tell me later.
Hopefully it'll pass the next day test.
Yeah,
because he's made that bargain, right? You help me, I'll help you. You know, he gets to hide within them with the American government, and then, as he thinks, or probably true as well, that they're gonna make more of him.
Yeah. That's what I kind of like. Is what to me the trap of this kind of story is. It's like, oh, an immortal warrior, and is it just gonna be like some kind of like sad vampire story? Which I think you're like, I don't want to do sad vampire. I was like, I don't either. And I think what we end up doing is pretty great. Like it's a twist on that, so it's not that. And then the idea with the government like using him to make more, you know what I mean? Because that's what you would think. It's like if this person exists, of course the government would want to get in there and try to replicate it. But I think the twist we have on that, without spoiling it, is like makes this whole series worth it. You know, it makes it this big and it just blows it into this. You know, no, it totally does. It's so great. That's what excited me about it. But that's what I think is so cool is him, like this idea of him. He's a little sad and he doesn't really necessarily want to die, but the idea that he wants to be able to, you know, and I think that's the cool distinction that this character has, is that he doesn't necessarily want to kill himself, but I like that idea of being able to die or knowing that you're eventually going to not be, gives your everyday meaning, you know. And so this guy, it's like, how does he find meaning in 80,000 years worth of days? Like, and I think that's what makes this deeper than anything else. It has that same idea, you know.
Yeah, he's trapped.
Yeah.
His life is not his own.
Yeah.
I think we all want to have at least our lives as an option.
Yeah. No, this is good. I'm excited about this book now. All this talking.
All right. So thanks everyone if you were checking this out. And we hope if you check out the comic BRZRKR, we hope you enjoy it. And thanks for spending time with us. Matt?
Yep. Thanks. I hope we promise that you'll like it.
Yeah, we can't do that.
You'll for sure like it.
No, you can't do that, man. There you go, the Kindtian
thing. Oh man, I promise you'll probably like it.
All right, thanks.
All right, thank you.